All right, morning. First off, thank you guys for being here. I thought it was important to make sure we got in front of you guys right before the start of training camp. Obviously, again, thank you to those guys that made the trek down to media days, but excited to get this thing going, right? We start this thing on Wednesday. It's been a heck of a summer. You know, I think back really the last 8+ months, all the work that's gone into this, we actually get to play football, right? Spring was great and all those things, and the summer strength and conditioning are wonderful things. But the ultimate chance to go out there in training camp, there's no better time of year. The guys have been gearing up, ready for it. Obviously, we continue to implement the scheme throughout the summer in OTAs and summer access. The guys got bigger, faster, and stronger. Look forward to putting that on display. But it starts with training camp, right? We report day tomorrow, and then full practice and get after it. Shortened training camp, as we all know, but excited, right? How much can we cram in before school starts, and then have a plan moving forward with that. But listen, this is the true start to the 2026 football season. The guys are excited, and so are we, and look forward to getting this thing going.
Coach, what's the biggest difference, I guess, from the spring to now? Is it just accelerated, hitting the ground running more?
Yeah, I think more than anything, we had a better understanding. We came up from spring, we met as a staff, say, okay, you get a pretty good understanding of what these guys are capable of. Obviously, limited freshmen joined us this summer, but okay, here's the roster. Here's what these guys we think can do. We got to continue to find out this about this player, this about this guy, and then now how can we get them bigger, faster, stronger? So really, you look at we separated the summer into two different ways, right? June was heavy lifting, obviously some speed work, and then July, a lot of conditioning, right? And then still obviously a lot of work in the weight room, but really pleased with that kind of growth that had happened in the spring. Okay, hey, this guy's capable of doing this. Now this is something we need to work on all throughout these OTAs. So each position coach knew what they needed to do. The strength coach had an understanding of guys' strengths and weaknesses, where we need to work on. Overall team, we left spring and said, man, we got to get a little bit faster. So that was a big focus as we continue to move through the summer, and was pleased every single day the way the guys attacked the work. But the biggest thing is in the summer, it's a lot of meetings on scheme. Spring, you're implementing, especially in year one, what were base installs, and then now moving into training camp. Okay, hey, instead of an every other day thing, it's the first 3 days we're going to do an off day, but you're able to meet on those days. But really, here it goes. We got to get the first 10 days of installing in training camp, and then really from then on, it's situational football.
You mentioned at media days that it could be all the way up to game one before you announce a starter at quarterback. I'm wondering what would be the benefit in that. I mean, you had, I guess it's January, really to evaluate these guys. Why take it that long when maybe sooner?
Well, it allows, you continue to sell more subscribers on VIP because you have the inside information, and then you can say, hey, this is what I know at practice and what happened. Now, I do think its advantage is because I know our opponents are studying both quarterbacks, right? It's always been, when you face a team that says, well, who's going to be the starters? This guy injured, this guy, because they do have unique skill sets. Obviously, people will be going back and watching some Memphis film, even high school film on A.J. Hill. And then on KJ, guys will be watching last year's stuff. So the more question marks you put into your opponents, I know even some of our future opponents, Utah, Georgia, some of those other teams are going to start studying, off-season studies on guys. And if they have an understanding who the quarterback's going to be, it just gives them maybe a couple days leg up. But for us as a team, if it makes sense to announce a starter a little bit earlier, great. I think throughout training camp, and you guys are going to ask, right, like, hey, who's getting it? What we're going to do is we're going to do, hey, day one, and don't read into this, right, KJ will go with the ones for all the team reps, mostly 7-on-7. Day two, AJ will. And then day three, KJ. So we'll truly do an alternating deal. If we get to the point at some point, truly during training camp or once school starts, where we feel like, hey, this guy now needs to get the lion's share with the ones, that will probably be pretty telling us who our starter will be. At this point, truly an alternating deal. We'll get a better understanding as we get closer. And, I always say this, right? You hope that whoever steps up, it's because they continue to take steps in the positive direction, which we're seeing. That's the good news. It's not like, this guy's not getting it done. And so they're both growing every single day. Listen, if we can have the answer in 3 weeks, if it's 2 weeks, but again, I also don't want to sit here and say, hey, it's definitely going to happen in 2 weeks, and they're both doing better, because the last thing you want to do is, stunt somebody's growth. Obviously, somebody's going to have their feelings hurt, but we've had those conversations. It's a long season. We need them both to buy into the way we're going to do things.
Hey, there was a recent ruling late last week, I believe, about 2022 enrollees in the fifth year. There's some guys from last year's roster who would qualify for you, and I just wonder if there's any guys you've identified pinpointed, assigned, whatever it takes to get more on your roster.
Yeah, so I found out you have another year of eligibility. I already filed that waiver for you, so look forward to getting you out there on Wednesday. No, it's interesting, right? As we know, guys, and I mentioned this in the past, like there's not been a single year where the rules have been the same day in and day out, year in and year out, right? So there's obviously ever-changing rules in college football. This obviously came out on social media Friday early evening, and it was like, okay, well now obviously your phone's blowing up trying to figure out what that meant, and then there's back and forth with the judge in Colorado and then the NCAA saying this. So like all of us, we're kind of sitting there, okay, yes, we are making steps in the right direction within compliance to see what makes sense for us as a football program. You know, there's certain rulings, hey, if a guy's not in the portal, what does that look like? Are they able to return to their institution? Listen, we are watching film. We're putting ourselves in the position, if it makes sense for our institution to add somebody else to our roster, we will. If it doesn't, then we won't. I don't think it makes, you sit there and say, okay, hey, your roster's this, and you got to go out there and cut somebody. Well, is it addition, right? And if not, then so be it. We'll move forward. Listen, if they say we're not sure right now and this continues to get dragged out through August and there's back and forth, we'll just set put and continue to pour into the guys we have. If it makes sense to add somewhere, we will.
Do you have a number of guys that you're looking at, like that you may have potential?
Yeah, so I think when the clarification where the judge said that a guy either, again, don't quote me on this, I don't know the exact ruling, right? Like the guy may already have to be in the transfer portal or be able to return to his previous institution, right? That took out about 90% of the guys. Because if you were a guy that thought you were exhausted eligibility and then you went out there and went to a training camp or a rookie mini camp, you weren't in the portal. And so if that's the ruling, obviously then a big number of guys are no longer available. But we have watched film because as we know this thing could get changed. We're also seeing guys at other universities, even in our conference, are getting that extra year that were in mini camps at other places. And so we'll see ultimately what happens.
Some folks I talked to at Memphis who knew you well talked about what the grind of camp looked like and how, it was tough and some players, weren't sure if they like you that much anymore. But anyway, what does that mean, the grind of camp, and how do you apply it?
Yeah, I think this is a great time, and I've mentioned this to our team and our staff, that the next couple weeks, I don't want anybody to like me. That's okay. I'm not here for people to like me. I hope the fans, when the season's all done, say, yeah, we like that guy. But other than that, man, we're out there and to truly grind. I think it's not like it used to be, right? The 2-a-days when we first got into this thing. Some guys will remember the 3-a-days. But go out there and it's got to be a physical camp because we can't expect to have a physical ball club and not have physical contact practice. Obviously, there's limitations in how many tackling scrimmages you can do. There's limitations how long before you go to full pads. But go out there and push them and strain them. Obviously, we're going to be smart. We want to be healthy because we know how important depth is in this conference. But I think they got to go out there and understand this is different. This is not spring football. This is not summer OTAs. This is not certainly what it's going to look like during the season. But for the next 2 weeks, understand we got to maximize everything they're capable of every second. They got to take care of their bodies. They got to eat. They got to hydrate. They got to pay attention to meetings because we're throwing everything at them. And I told, especially like our leadership group, I said, I'm coming after you. I'm going to call you out. I'm going to coach you really, really hard. I told our coaching staff I'm coming after them. We have to demand the absolute most of everybody. It starts with me every single day. Now, that should be that way 365 days a year, but I want everybody to feel that sense of this is going to be a little bit different. This is a grind. We are going to push. We are going to strain because that's reality, right? I mean, guess what? Every game you line up for, nothing's going to be easy. And so if you can implement it on August 5th or August 12th, might as well make it happen in practice. So when you play on Saturdays, okay, we've been through this. We've seen these different things that are occurring. And ultimately, that if you want to call it a grind, I just call it training camp.
Kind of following up on Trey's question about the timeline of the quarterback battle. You told us in Tampa that it could last all the way up to the first game. Are you wanting to come out of that first game with the for sure starter named, or could that game serve as a final audition going into week 2?
Yeah, ideally you want to have that for sure starter named, right? I think, the old adage, if you got 2 quarterbacks, you have none. I disagree. We've got 2 guys that are capable. We've got multiple guys. Some of those younger guys are doing some really nice things as well, which I'm quite excited about. A name I never mention is, Hank Hendricks. I think he's done some great things. And then Brandon Fuller and Cade Trotter are working really well. But all that being said, ideally, in a perfect world, right, we name a starter, that guy lasts all the way through, however long we get to play football this year. And, we're excited about that. And in a perfect world, you get to keep all your quarterbacks, and we just keep working to improve. We know that college football is a little bit different, but the plan is ideally, right, hey, whoever your starter is. Now, we know things can happen. Obviously, we hope if a guy ever is coming out of a game, it's not due to injury, and you hope it's not due to poor performance. Maybe it's because a guy's done so well, he deserves a chance to also showcase what he's capable of.
Yeah, and then just what are the qualities, attributes that you're looking at that could tip the scale in that battle?
Yeah, the number one thing is accuracy, right? Truly, can they make great decisions with the football? Sometimes you find really accurate quarterbacks, but then they don't get rid of the ball in time, right? We're not going to be able to sit back there for 8 seconds and hang out with the football and take our time. This is not, high school 7-on-7, right? Can they get the ball, rid of the ball in a timely fashion? Are they accurate with that? And really, truly making great decisions. I've said this all along, and some people think this is, a boring statement, but we want an efficient quarterback that can lead our offense. We've had some really efficient quarterbacks in our past in this system, and they've had a lot of success. What does that look like statistically? Taking care of the football, right, putting us in the right situation. Sometimes that may be putting us into a run play or changing the protection to better suit us. And that's what you got to see is that continuation. The guys are doing a great job with it. You rep it as best you can. There's nothing like it until you actually go against the defense, right? One thing to go against trash cans, right? The trash cans aren't moving real fast during OTA. So how do we get those looks? How do we continue to adjust? And so as we progress through training camp, right, who's making the better decisions? Who's taking care of the football? Who's putting the ball where it needs to be? And in essence, leading our offense to production and efficiency.
Outside of the quarterback battle, what's one position maybe that you're most keen to kind of evaluate, maybe whether it's a battle or just the overall depth, now when you get started on Wednesday?
Yeah, I mentioned briefly, I like where the offense line's at. We got to continue. Those are one of those groups that truly grows a lot during training camp. The wide receiver position, we have a bunch of guys that are capable of football, playing at a high level. Jelani Watkins has just gotten added to us. Obviously, it goes without being said, we're really excited about his speed. But what can he do with the football in his hand and take care of that? We haven't seen him with contact. He's not the heaviest of guys. We also added Maurice Gleaton Jr., just so a name you guys have. He's a world-class track athlete, was most recently previous institution in the SEC running track, and he actually was originally coming here to track, but he's going to do both. Have a great relationship with Coach Case, and he's another receiver add to that mix that just got here. Excited to see what he can do. But so many of those other guys in the wide receiver position, okay, do we have 8 starters? And that's not a terrible thing. Do we have some guys that can step up? Can Chris Marshall be consistent and be that guy that we all hope and know he can be? And then the defensive line, right? I think that's the position. Yeah, some guys have played a lot of football, right? We know what Quincy Rhodes Jr. can do. David Oakey before his injury. Some of these other guys have played some football. And then ultimately, what does that look like with the young guys behind them? Right? Who can step up? Can the Carlon Joneses step up? Right? Can the Day Sims step up? Those guys that haven't played. Can Danny Beal find his way into the mix as a young player? I think those are the ones that, once you put on the pads, it's great. It's one thing running around with T-shirt and shorts on, in June and July. But ultimately, that position, I'll be hanging out a lot with the defense line just to get a feel. Obviously, I hope I can coach a little bit and teach them some, but to really get a feel who can go out there, who can we trust in the rotation. Especially the D-line in this conference, right? Sometimes not just being too deep. Is there that third guy that can come in and maybe grow into a rotational spot? Because you're going to need all bodies and all hands on deck there.
And with the offensive line, from what we got to see in the spring, you had that first unit and they pretty much all played together unless there was a guy banged up or whatever. Do you anticipate that staying like that headed into the fall, or could you maybe see some more interchange maybe between first and second string offensive line here?
Yeah, ideally you want those guys to play as much together as they possibly can, but I think you got to see there's certain guys that were challenging. You look at the interior 3 guys, they've all played a lot of football and at a high level. Malachi Braylon has come in and done a nice job. I think he's proven himself as a starting guard in this conference. Right, obviously, our starting center's done a great job. He, wouldn't bring him to SEC Media Days if I didn't think Kittler could represent us on the field. He's put on great weight. He's weighing about 310 now. I think last year one game he was 288. So he's about 310 now. Can he maintain that weight? And then Kobe, has obviously started a lot of games as a young player here. Can he continue to grow and mature? So those three interior guys you feel pretty good about. But, Cash Courtney's another young guy that maybe we challenge him and challenge all three of those guys, those three interior guys, to see what they're capable of doing and maybe throw them in the mix some with the ones. Sometimes that pressure and the idea of a guy behind you that's capable of playing as a starter, that helps. And then the tackle positions, nobody's set because a lot of them hadn't played a lot of football. Kavion Broussard, we're thrilled with what he's done and showed in the spring. But can some of these other guys, can Josiah Clemens step up, right? Terrence Robinson's another guy that we had at tackle, moved some into guard to see what he's capable of doing there. And then Big Bryant at right tackle, right? Is there somebody else that can push him? Can Adam Hawks come in and challenge him? So I think the good news is we feel comfortable with some of those guys. But my guess is, after the first 10 days, if everybody stays healthy, that we'll be able to move forward with and figure out who our starters are there.
What's the biggest hindrance you have with only 9 days of fall camp?
Yeah, it's a unique deal, and I won't call it a hindrance. I'll sit there and say it's an opportunity for us to get to our academics quicker. But it is. It's the shortest training camp I've ever had in 28 years of coaching. No one asked me when school gets to start around here, and so I would just say, okay, this is what we've been given. So I think the biggest thing is how are you able to get, you still get your 2 hours of practice, what that looks like, right? We'll go to a morning practices once school starts. But where you lose is that, that the ability to do that hour walkthrough, the ability to get that extra hour and a half meeting time, right? Sometimes getting that fourth meal to those guys. And so once classes start, now you got to navigate through it. During training camp, guys are living up here, they're breathing up here, they're living in the training room. You find a way to get more situational football done. And so we're having to be creative. And so one of the things we're doing is like on these Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays when they don't have the academics involved, like one of these Saturdays we're doing a scrimmage at 9:15 at night, right? Because I can't do that on a Tuesday if they got class the next day, or we were morning practicing the next night. So we're doing like a 9:15 scrimmage under the lights. One, you're on lights. Two, to prepare us for an idea of what it's like to play at night when we travel out west, right? And then one of these nights also, when school has started, we're actually going to stay at the team hotel. It's my first time seeing what the meals look like, seeing what the layout looks like. Those are things normally you can get done during training camp. Now we're saying, okay, hey, we got limited weekends, obviously, and then that's where we got to push a lot of this stuff. But my biggest concern is are we covering as much situational as we can? I think we'll get through the base installs, but man, did I recover the onside kick? Did we have the chance to discuss backed up punt? Did we have a chance to discuss 2-minute situation before the half? Because a lot of those things we'll get through the jog throughs during training camp. And when you're limited on that, you sit there and say, okay, we got to make sure we check this box, because the last thing you want to do is leave stuff on the table that you didn't get covered. So it's really a timing thing. I've got it to my best of my ability, the calendar prepared all the way through next February. And I feel pretty good with what we've got and mapped out as far as a practice plan for our guys. But you never know until you actually go out there and play. And if I'm sitting there going over something on the sideline, it's like, oh, man, we didn't cover that. But I feel very, very comfortable and confident that we'll get as much done as we can.
How much can you really know about your team after 9 days of fall camp?
Great question. I think, again, like going back to that quarterback question, like, okay, what's it look like after 18 days, right? I think the 9 is, you get, I think we'll be in 1 day of full pads by the time we go to school starts, and that's so unusual because you're used to, hey, you get 3 weeks of training camp, grinding, all those things, and you've had your couple scrimmages, you've been in full pads. At this situation, you're not going to have that idea and a full understanding, especially at that quarterback position and then the line of scrimmages. But the biggest thing is we're cramming as much as we can that compliance will allow us to in those 9-10 days and figure it out. We're going to do as much group bonding, team bonding as we can. Really, I don't want anybody to leave our building. Obviously, they'll probably go home at night to sleep, but I can imagine half the guys are going to be hanging out in the locker room.
And finally, what would AJ have to do to win this job? We talk so much about KJ, but what specifically would AJ need to show you for him to be the clear winner by the time the North Alabama game comes around? Yeah,
AJ's had a very, very good offseason. He's shown he has an understanding of this offense. Obviously, he had a leg up being in this offense a year prior. But, his decision-making has improved every single day. And I think the biggest thing, like we've talked to him about, is the timing. Hey, 1001, 1002, get rid of the ball. And that doesn't mean it's a short route. Sometimes you can still throw vertical passing concepts. That, and then also pre-snap, right? Hey, no, I got to get the tight end over here, and this is what we got to get to. continue to grow within that, right? I always say this, it's one thing to know the offense. It's another thing to have a full understanding of the offense, but can you master it? And then master it versus all different defensive schemes. And then when you do that, by the way, the ball's got to go in the exact spots. It's one thing to sit there and say, hey, I'm really smart. I know what I need to do. But now can I go out there and actually execute? And he's showing that every single day. So been very, very pleased with his growth. I'm telling you guys right now, it's a neck-and-neck battle, and that's a very good thing for us.
Going back to what Tom was asking about the 2022 guys potentially have another year, do you have roster spots available right now? Like, I know the DSAs kind of makes the math complicated.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is, and we're waiting to get clarification on that because they said, again, it was all on social media. And by the way, much to you guys' frustration, I'll be getting off social media starting tomorrow, so I won't be able to read all your articles. Kyle will send me all the lovely things you guys are saying about us. But with that, it's my understanding, again, you probably have a better clarification. We've talked to our compliance, we've talked to our people, administration about that, is that right now the ruling had nothing to do with roster spots. So does that mean if there's a walk-on on our team or a scholarship player on our team, now do we have to remove that player in order to add one? Are you even allowed to do that, right? I mean, there's rules about saying that you can't do blind transfers. So I think we're all trying to figure that out, what that exactly looks like. Last thing we want to do is say we did nothing. And if we have the ability to upgrade our roster and make a change, that will be it. The administration's been great. Hey, whatever we need to do, what does this look like? Obviously, I think we're out of DSAs. We've added quite a few to our roster. But does that mean, hey, this guy is no longer a walk-on? We're certainly not at the full limit, and I think the SEC doesn't. It's a 105 on scholarships. We are not at 105 scholarships. So does that mean the ability to add more scholarship players with the administration's blessing, if it makes sense? Again, we may be sitting here a week from now, and that may still be going on. And I'm just saying, screw it, we got to go. But I think we'll know more tonight. We'll know more tomorrow. And if it makes sense, again, going back to that, and I don't mean to. I'm not trying to brush it off. But if we can and we can't expand the roster, or if we have to play that switch game, we certainly will.
And going back to the wide receivers, the track guys that you mentioned, Jelani, he's been here, obviously had a lot of success on the track. How much has he been able to do with y'all? Is he able to do stuff in the meetings and stuff like that?
Yeah, so for Jelani, we made a deal, obviously, world-class track athlete, that when he was at track, his focus could be at track. Now, to the kid's credit and the young man's credit, he showed up at some of those winter workouts early in the morning, just stand there and watch. Now, we weren't going to beat down his body because he had the ability to go out there and run on a national level. And then, hey, make sure you're studying the playbook when you have a chance on a Saturday night. Hey, look in your iPad, make sure you're getting that. So to his credit, it's not like he was that far behind. Obviously there's a big difference between studying a playbook, a paper copy, or watching film, or sitting on some meetings, and then going out there and doing it. So his first time actually jogging and running through routes was these OTAs. But to give him credit, he was pretty dialed in. He's smart. He asks questions. So he's a young man that you hope, right, that has the ability to come in and impress some of those other guys that have been here, because he can run. Obviously that goes without being said.
And with Maurice, was he in the recruiting process? Was he solely focused on track, and then once he committed and signs, he came to your office and said, "Hey, can I play football?" Or how did that play out?
There's been some dialogue back and forth. We had mutual connections, and one of those people reached out and said, "Hey, I know Maurice is taking an official visit there for track," and I reached out to Coach Case, like always, and have that positive dialogue. And to his credit, he's like, "Man, listen. More of my guys that want to play football for you." He goes, "I want you to have so much success." In fact, I saw him yesterday in the neighborhood. He's like, I'm excited. He's going to come out and watch some practices. But I think that could be a good relationship for us, right? We'll take fast guys. Now, can they catch the football? Can they hold on to it? But with Maurice, it was predominantly to come here for track, whereas Jelani was football and track. And then we talked to him with Maurice and his family and said, "Hey, do you want to come here?" And ultimately, we put him on a football scholarship. Obviously, we had a loss in the wide receiver room, so we had that extra scholarship spot available. We thought he was a good young player. That he's obviously didn't play last year, but it's hard to pass up that type of speed, especially a young man that's excited to be here and that working relationship with the track program as well.
Ryan, can you expand on the whole social media blackout here? When did that start? Why is it important to you? what's your message to players? Because you know they have to be on it, but they have to be careful.
Yeah. First, for me, it's just been one of those deals. I think as you get older and older, you realize, yeah, I've got plenty of vices, right? And I think, there's as I've gotten older and I realize, man, I don't sleep much already during the season. And a lot of you guys know that. That's how coaches are just in general. And I was finding the things that were distracting me at all. Right? Was like I give up sugar during the season. Now, it doesn't mean like if it's in something I'm eating, but I'm not ordering the Oreo Blizzard at 11 o'clock on DoorDash anymore, right? Like, come tomorrow. That's in the off-season? Oh, in the off-season, yeah, absolutely. I've got some stains on my pants right now from the Oreo I had on the way in. But I think part of that is, like, it just, I don't need it, right? Let me just eat my lunch and my dinner. And I certainly am not preaching to anybody on healthy eating habits, all right? No different, like the alcohol. I will enjoy it in the off season within reason, but then during the season, man, even having a drink after a win, if that impedes my sleep or the ability to be better for my team next day, then it's not worth it. And then no different in social media, right? Whether it's good or bad, it shouldn't matter to me what's said, what's out there. Now, I still want to be educated on what's going on with other teams and new rules and all those things. So people will print off news articles for me, and I'll still have a good understanding of those things. But it becomes a distraction. And you talk to a lot of players, they talk about the social media, or they'll say, even after a win, well, this guy was on me. Like, don't worry about that. Don't worry about what was written about you, good, bad, or indifferent. Because sometimes if someone says something positive about you, you start feeling yourself that. No, it doesn't matter, right? Win or loss, you got to show up on a Sunday and put in the damn work for the next week. And so for me, it was just, hey, I'm just going to give these things up. They're just distractions to me. And really, can I just focus on football in this program? And then when time allows, and truly, it's my family. In the off season, it's much time with my family as I can be, and then football. But during the season, there's really no other time. You guys know I'm going to put over 100 hours in every single week. I'm going to bury my head in this thing, and it's my job, it's our job to get this program to back where it needs to be. So anything at all that distracts from that, I'm cutting it out. And I've something I started a few years ago, and then talking to the players about it. There's quite a few of our players who will give up social media. Now it's a short window, right? 9 days, anybody can do that, right? I could diet for 9 days, but I think that a lot of our guys have talked about, just getting off it, getting away from it to their best of their ability, because it does. You hear young men, you talk about it, and you even hear teenagers, even 22-year-olds that say it affects their mood by what they read. We don't need all that stuff. Let's put our blinders on and focus on the task at hand and see what happens at the end.
The roster overhaul is so significant here, even more so defensively. What aspect on that side of the ball, maybe right now, coming out of spring football, are you most confident in?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, one, I think they're going to be on the same page schematically, which is huge. Nothing, again, what happened in the past, but I always say this, right? If we're running cover 3, and it's an overfront, cool. Does the starting defensive end know it? Does the backside safety know it? Does the corner know it? The linebackers, are they communicating? Now there's a motion. Okay, we're all on the same page of what needs to adjust with that. So I think the communication within the scheme and being on the same page is huge. You see a lot of teams in Division I college football sometimes not always on the same page. And then the one thing I can judge every single day is the effort. And that's one thing I've been able to see every single day, obviously when we put on the pads and we're going through training camp, but the growth in the effort, right? Like, the first day of spring practice didn't say a whole lot, and obviously we're out there in helmets, everybody's getting a feel for where they go. And you grade defensive film, and it's, 72 lows. No, that gets you beat every day of the week. Then the next day, it's 62. Then the next day, it's 52. And so you got to see, even as we progress, even as we put on more pads, right, those loafs go down. Now, the guys are sitting there talking about not loafing, but then what's the body language look like? And those are the things that we have the ability to control and talk about. And so if you go out there on a Saturday and you have got to play with great body language, with great passion, great effort on defense, and can communicate, you give yourself a chance every Saturday.
I wanted to ask you about the linebackers. Bogle we haven't talked about him a lot. He had a really big spring game. And you got a couple of guys who didn't really, weren't available for spring. I wonder what you think of that position going in.
Yeah, the two guys that have really stepped up have been Quay Smith and Bradley Shaw. I've been pleased, You watch Bradley Shaw's film from last year, and you say there's room for improvement. There's some things. Was he moving as well? And I look at Bradley Shaw from this time, whenever I could, right? September, his first game of last year, to what he looks like today, and I've been so pleased. He's stepping up as a leader. He's doing a lot of things. I've got high expectations for Bradley Shaw. I think Coy Smith, another guy that came from SS football, that you got to watch his film. Not sure how he'd be. Can he handle the SEC? And he has stepped up tremendously. So been so pleased with those two. And then to talk about those guys like Ben Bogle. Ben Bogle has had a lot of production in college football, played a lot of different places. Ben was battling a hamstring through some of spring, so I was kind of getting a feel. Was he able to step up and get in the rotation at linebacker? We certainly think so. He's certainly a name that we feel very comfortable with him going in. A guy like Wyatt Simmons, can he go in and play? And so that's kind of neat to be able to watch what those guys are doing, and I think we're going to get a good feel who else can get in there. Right? Obviously, you hope you're not rotating linebackers as often as you are D linemen, but it's good to have a comfortability of a guy like a Ben Bogle that you could feel comfortable if he had to go in a starting role and play football. Wyatt Simmons no different. So throwing those guys all in the mix and see what happens.
And then receivers, you feel like you're going to have enough playmakers, enough speed to get it down there?
Yes, sir, we do. Obviously, got to continue to push and work and to make sure, but I feel very confident in that group. I do. And it's, sometimes throughout your career as a coach, you sit there and you got that one guy you can hang your hat on. Hey, this guy, returning guy with a lot of production. Well, we don't have a lot of truly returning production in college football. I think one of the guys that has the most catches, on our team was Donovan Fappel, a guy we haven't talked about enough. He had a lot of production at his previous stop. C.J. Brown obviously got a good amount of playing time here last year. Then where's the production? But I feel like we got a bunch of guys. They're going to step up. They can go out in there and do those things. Ishmael Cece is a guy that was hurt last year, but I told you guys, coming out of the spring, I thought he's really grown and showed where he needs to get to. So pleased with him. But I feel very confident in the wide receiver room.
Defensive line, you brought in obviously a lot of bodies, but you also added Antonio Sandal Bascom since the spring. I was wondering what your thoughts on him are and if he'll be able to make an impact.
Yeah, he's a guy that came in post spring, so that's always hard. But he's worked hard. He's got to continue to show. I think a lot of it when you're not working out, junior college football season ends early November, then it's okay. Are you doing exactly what you need to in the weight room? Are you doing? And so it's I said no different, right? You get these high school kids coming in here, no different than a junior college player. Hey, this is the speed. This is how we do things. He's bought in and understanding, but he's one of those. I told you got to work your tail off to see if you can make the travel squad. And a lot of these guys, nobody's been promised anything. I think when we bring in transfers, we bring in a junior college guy. Oh, you must have brought them in to be in the too deep. Well, that's great if they can be, but there's a lot of guys battling for those backup roles right now, and he's one of them. We're looking forward to see what he's doing. Obviously, feel confident. The guy I haven't mentioned as much as I probably should have, Hunter Osborne, have great faith in what he's going to be able to do on the D line as well. But those other guys, like Antonio's going to be battling, right? Some of those guys that we've mentioned earlier to see if he can get into the mix.
Anybody who has never loafed?
I don't think so. I think you're kidding yourself if you sat there and said this guy never loafs. And I think that you're doing yourself an injustice, right? Like I get mad at myself when I'm like, man, I'm sitting there telling the guys to jog in between the white lines, and I'm over here walking or I'm not doing. And I think that's not a constant deal. It's not like, hey, Big Brother's constant watching me. It's not a thumb always on the guys, but it's, man, why? We don't have time to waste out here. And if you're loafing during a practice, shame on you. And I think everybody needs to be called out on it. And you look for it, and sometimes it's finding that best player, that doesn't 99.9% of the time doesn't loaf, but then you can find that one time where it's not to the standard we expect, and you can call him out in front of his team. Then everybody's like, oh, wow, this is real. This is not just him pointing at the freshman that's overweight, that's not running to the ball. Or this is not him just pointing out defensive guys. This is every single person is equal opportunity to get chewed out. And I think that's, I hate to say this, but you look for that in camp. You don't want complacency. You don't want guys that are not doing it. I just complimented Bradley Shaw. I'm going to be really, really hard on Bradley Shaw. Like, he better be running the ball with extreme effort. When that tape gets cut off, it better be, man, I'm getting close to the ball carrier as I possibly can be. And I think the guys appreciated it. I've complimented him earlier. One guy that I've seen play with tremendous, tremendous effort, even during these OTAs, is Braylon Russell. Okay, and people, regardless of what was said about him in the past, man, I've just been so pleased with him. And I told him it's not just learning the system, the way he goes out there, but his effort. It's a totally different thing than what we were told and maybe what had appeared on tape last year. His effort's been great. But guess what? I told Braylon, now that's the minimum expectation, that you're running like your hair's on fire, even when you don't have the ball in your hand, to go get that extra block, to go be that guy that can figure it out in case that ball comes out, or to go, you never know, screen off a backside defender. So I've been quite pleased with him. But again, he's one of those guys I've got to hold to that standard every single day.
Are you adding a big screen in the Walker Pavilion? Is that added?
I would like to. Yeah, that's the plan.
What are the applications for that?
Yeah, so we added. The plan is to add a gigantic video board in the indoor, which for a multitude of reasons. The great thing about it is now it may be in the coming on its way from China, and hopefully it shows up sooner than later, or we may send you to customs, Trey, to see if we can figure this thing out. But what I appreciate about this is, a lot of teams have big screens in their indoor. This one has the ability to drop down to make it a walk-through wall. And you're seeing throughout college football more teams are adding walk-through walls and all that. Well, we're not adding a new building here. All we're doing is adding to our indoor. So it'll drop down, and then we can have almost not a virtual reality, but life-size true walk-through. And that's an application that we'll be able to do. Also, positions can meet in there, right? If the D-line, they get tired of meeting in that meeting space every single day, they can go out there and sit in their seats and do a virtual reality, or just a bigger projection of what occurred in practice or game day. The O-line and running backs will use it for blitz pickup. And now you can also put it back up to where it needs to be and mount it on the wall. And now if our defense is facing a tempo team, and instead of the kids running and looking at the card for scout team like we've all done, now they can look up on the video board and it can be shown for scout team, right? The cards can be through Microsoft Visio. Now all of a sudden the scout team, they can just peek up there real quick, and now you can practice tempo in a variety of different manners. I think there's a ton of different ways. Obviously, we'll use it in sort of presentations for recruiting, but it was one of those things I thought that this place needed that I think will actually help us move forward. Hopefully it gets here sooner than later.
Dimensions, and where is it?
I don't know the exact dimensions. It's big. Yeah, I wasn't going to go with something. I had to put on some glasses to look at. It's going to be massive, and it's going to be. Let's see here. Kyle, help me out. What side would that be? So Barnhill side? Yes. Barnhill side, northeast, kind of closer to the weight room right there. And I thought that was the best. People, other places have them at the 50-yard line. That's more for recruiting and presentations. This one I thought had more of a serviceable application. The ability to drop down, players to be able to walk right out of their meeting rooms right there in that corner, to be able to watch it. Also with the defense kind of going that way. If it's at the 50-yard line, it makes no sense kind of where it's at. So excited about it. When it gets here, we'll certainly put it to good use.
Did you have that at Memphis, or was it something you've seen somewhere else and you liked it, or? Yeah,
so at Memphis we had one, but shame on me, we had it on the 50-yard line. Now we also didn't have spots for it, but we used it all the time. Sometimes it's even when you come out there, the depth charts are out there, where guys lining up, or special teams drills. But I got it when I first got to Memphis, and I had the good fortune to go visit some other schools for camps and meet with their coaches as well. You always kind of take the best ideas you can, and how do we implement it in this program. And I've done that with a lot of things. We're going to continue to add things to this program to put us back to where we need to be. They're going to help us have success on game day. And anything that can be better, benefit our players, we're all for.
And then injury-wise, I know you mentioned at SEC Media Days, Jalen Allen's out for the year, and obviously Connor Smith, the punter. Anybody else that's going to be limited as you get going in fall camp?
Hope not. No, that's the plan, that we can – everybody's healthy, knock on wood, with soft tissue guys in the training room today taking care of their bodies, so we can go out there and go perform at a high level. Obviously, we know things occur, and I'll keep you guys updated. The minor ones, obviously, we'll probably keep to ourselves, but anything that has a long-term effect, I'll make sure that we're open and transparent, and obviously the conference has their rules about when we get closer to game day.
This standpoint of the season, what identity do you believe maybe this year's team will have going into year one or going into fall camp? What identity do you hope to be building?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question, because I've constantly said, okay, what's the identity of the program? What's that look like? And you want the players to set it, right? I mean, I think every coach is going to tell you they want to be smart, they want to be tough, they want to be physical, and they want to be fast. And along that, can they be explosive, right? And I think if you keyed up 136 Division I coaches, it'd say, oh, they all said the exact same thing. So I'd rather not give you coach speak. I think that identity is going to be set during camp, right? The one thing I told you that a long time ago, that we got to be the best in the country, the controllables. And so, if our identity is a team that plays with the best effort in college football, that plays really sound, I'm okay with that. Those are good things. It doesn't sound as cool as saying we're explosive and we're going to light up the scoreboard and we're going to play sound defense and blitz everything. The reality is we'll have an understanding of what we are throughout those short dog days of training camp as we get a feel for what we are and who we are. And then I want the guys to set the identity. It doesn't matter, hey, Ryan Silverfield's identity. No, hell no. It's what the players want, what the players are going to ultimately identify with and who they are, and that they feel when they're in the locker room that this is who we're about and this is what we're going to showcase every single day.
Coach, appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate y'all being here.